Rose Conway-Walsh, good evening to you.
Good evening, Aidan.
And you're pleased to some extent about the interview that the Taoiseach gave on radio yesterday regarding the Leaving certificate and what happens this year.
I am, Aidan, because this has been long awaited. I mean, we've been pressing the Taoiseach and the Minister now for weeks and weeks and weeks to bring some certainty and clarity and fairness for students. Now, obviously, we have yet to see the details of what he's suggesting, but at least he is saying that this week students will know what's happening. And obviously, we have put forward to him the proposal that students need a choice. There's no perfect solution here. But there are some students who feel that what's better for them is for them to actually sit and do a Leaving Cert, and they must be able to do that. But for others, they feel that because of the way that their education has been impacted over the last 12 months, that they just cannot possibly, that they are not prepared to be able to do a Leaving Cert and to give them the best chance that they can get, according to their aptitude. And that's so. At least we will have clarity. I am so glad that by the end of this week we will know what's happening. But the devil is in the details, so we'll have to...
Yeah, we had Martin Daly on the programme earlier, and he was taking the view that the comments by the Taoiseach yesterday that a combination of a written Leaving Cert exam and calculated grades, in Martin Daly's view, this is a cop-out. And isn't it a cop-out? He's kind of straddling both sides of the road, as it were.
No, I wouldn't say that now, in fairness, because we have spoken to hundreds and hundreds of students across the country, and indeed I've spoken to many of the parents and families as well, and they are telling us, and we have to listen when they say that they need a choice in it. So I don't believe, and in fact I would be fearful about forcing students in Leaving Cert or indeed in Junior Cert to sit down and do a normal traditional exam, because they haven't had a normal traditional year. And, you even have the situations in terms of broadband or equipment or whatever the students might have at home in being able to connect up to lectures. And indeed, there hasn't been a minimum standard of delivery of classes as well. Now, I know teachers have been working and schools have been working extremely hard to deliver the best experience that they could and to deliver the best that they can. But I just know from talking to students and from listening to students that they need a choice. And in fairness, I just could not stand over forcing students to sit down and do a Leaving Cert when I know that their mental health has been impacted and their health and their well-being has been impacted, not only by the efforts that they are making in terms of their learning, but also, Aidan, in what's going on around them. They see people around them being bereaved, people passing away, people being extremely ill. All of those things impact on all of us. And they impact acutely on younger people who haven't built up the resilience maybe that some of us have. And it's our absolute duty to do everything that we can to relieve that stress and to ensure that these young people and students have, can get a fair chance of what they want out of life and what type of course they want to do, whether that is a CAO course or an apprenticeship or just whatever that they might want to do. The Leaving Cert isn't a be and it's not the end of everything, and nor is the Junior Cert.
But is it wise, though? But is it wise, Rose, to be pandering to young people and basically allowing young people, Leaving Cert students, to essentially decide what they should do this year, whether it is a combination of the Leaving Cert and calculated grades, or whether it's the Leaving Cert itself or some other mechanism? Life is tough, and you could well inculcate in young people, look, at whatever you want you'll get, just be mouthy enough about it, as opposed to engendering some degree of resilience.
No, in all honesty, I couldn't agree with that, Aidan, and I couldn't agree with the word pandering, because it's not that there's a difference between pandering and listening. And when young people are telling us across the board, are telling us the severe pressure and stress that they are under, and it is actually palpable. Feel it yourself when you're, and I know it's virtual meetings we're having with the young people and people who are in those classes, but we can't ignore it. We have a duty of care to those young people, and it certainly isn't pandering. We're in just such an extraordinary situation with this pandemic that we cannot push them to the wire. And I certainly, as a public representative, would not want to be in any way responsible for adding to the stress of those students. It doesn't mean that they're not good, bright, intelligent young people and well-rounded young people. But they'd have to be made of stone not to be impacted on what's going on around them. And please God, they will never in their lifetimes again have to go through this. But I just want them to have a fair opportunity for their future learning and their future employment prospects. And I think we have to do that. I didn't hear Martin Daly. Now, I'd be interested to hear, obviously, his point of view as well. But was he saying that they should absolutely be given no alternative other than to sit and do a traditional Leaving Cert?
Well, Martin has always been of the opinion that the Department of Education should do all that is necessary in order to have as traditional a Leaving Cert as possible, i.e. a written exam.
Oh yeah, and I agree that should be part of the choice, because there are students and indeed parents who want their sons and daughters to do that as well. So I agree with him to that extent, but I do think that there has to be a choice there. It would be everybody's desire, as flawed and all as the Leaving Cert is, to have that traditional Leaving Cert. But, that is the exam at the end of the year. They're in their Leaving Cert now, and they're not getting, they're not getting the same learning as they would get or same quality of learning as they would get were they in the classroom situation. And that has to be borne in mind. So that's why, there's no, as I said, there's no perfect answer to this. But I think by at least giving a choice, and if we just protect one young person in that scenario, then I think it's sufficient. I really think, and the other thing is that, our the services and supports that are there for young people trying to access mental health supports and services is not there. And I know that on a daily basis, and I am extremely concerned, as we are, that the supports and the services aren't there, not only for young people, but across the board. And
can I stay on the issue of education in terms of a return to school? Do you think that, as Martin Daly suggested, and I appreciate fully, Rose, you didn't hear the interview, but Martin Daly was saying that the Leaving Cert students should be brought back at the earliest opportunity, and that the remainder of the years should continue to be educated online.
Oh yeah, he's right. The Leaving Cert students should be given preference, but also the Junior Cert students, yes, certainly, but only when it's safe for them to do so. And I know the numbers in Mayo are reducing slightly now. We need to see them reduced further. I know that the special needs classes, or special education classes, will be coming back, I think, next week, and I certainly welcome that. So I agree with him there, but only when it's safe. I mean, the push to, it's absolutely crazy to try and put back Leaving Cert students on the 11th of January, when the numbers, and looking at the numbers here in the Balmullet electoral area, I certainly wouldn't have allowed my child, no matter what year they were in, to go back to school under those circumstances.
No, but I think in fairness to the government, it wasn't aware at that point that the situation was as serious as it was.
Oh, but sure, they should be. Of course they should be aware of. They have the numbers that are coming through in the different constituencies. So trying to force people out and tell them stay at home at the same time, I think that is just mixed messaging. And, the people are ahead of the government in a lot of these things. So, I told them, I begged them, and Simon Harris, not to let the students go back, the Leaving Cert students go back on the 11th of January, that it wasn't safe for them to do so in certain areas. Now, I appreciate that there are other areas where you might have a low infection rate, and then certainly it's everybody's desire to have for the students themselves to be back in the classroom and to have students and teachers back in the classroom. And I know it's the wish of the teachers as well. And the other thing I would say, Aidan, is that teachers are working very hard in these circumstances. They are working day and night, all of the teachers that I know, to do the online classes and then to do extra classes in the evening and everything else that can possibly be done. But the impression is there that because the schools are closed, teachers are off. They're certainly not. All the teachers I know are certainly not off, and they're doing a fantastic job, and I want to thank them for that.
One final point. There is no Junior Cert this year. Do you think that perhaps the time has now come to reassess that exam? Yes. Well, both exams it has. I think there needs to be much more continuous assessment. The pressure of having a Leaving Cert. I think there's one good thing to come out of this is that the Leaving Cert and the Junior Cert really need to be revisited and revised, and having all this pressure heaped upon young people to perform, to take in all this information and vomit it up on the paper is not the right way to learn, and it's certainly not a way to cultivate a love of learning. And I think that's what education should be about, cultivating that love of learning, so that then they want a third level or apprenticeships, whatever somebody might want to do, rather than just testing your ability to be able to recite and remember everything and then throw it up on the paper in 2 hours. That's not, to me, that is not the way to that we should be going, and I think we need to change that now, and hopefully that will be a legacy of what has been done now, that we will have more continuous assessment and a more engaging way of learning and measuring very good
people's aptitude and commitment in their schoolwork.
Very good. We must leave it there. Rose Conway-Walsh, Sinn Féin spokesperson on higher education, many thanks indeed.